Dr. Sarah Chen stood in the observation deck of Station Alpha, watching Earth shrink to a tiny blue dot in the darkness. Around her, other humans pressed their faces against the reinforced glass, some crying, others standing in shocked silence. This was it. Humanity's last look at home. The message had come 3 days ago. Ambassador Kethvar of the Galactic Council had delivered it himself, his 6 arms folded formally as he spoke in that clicking, mechanical voice that all Centauri used when delivering official proclamations. The species known as humans are hereby expelled from all Council territories. You have 72 standard cycles to evacuate all inhabited worlds, stations, and vessels within Council space. Any human found within these boundaries after the deadline will be considered an enemy combatant. Sarah remembered the stunned silence that had followed. Humanity had been part of the Galactic Council for almost 50 years. They had colonies on 12 worlds, trade agreements with dozens of species, and had contributed significantly to Council technology and culture. The announcement made no sense. But why? Sarah had asked, stepping forward from the crowd of human diplomats and officials. What have we done wrong? Kethvar's 4 eyes had fixed on her with what she could only describe as disgust. Your species is too aggressive, too unpredictable. The recent incident at Proxima Station was the final straw. The incident at Proxima Station. Sarah closed her eyes, remembering the reports. A human cargo ship had been attacked by Vorth pirates. The crew had fought back, not just defended themselves but actually pursued the pirates to their base and destroyed it completely. No survivors. The Galactic Council called it an overreaction. Humans called it justice. The Council has determined that humanity poses a threat to galactic peace, Kethvar had continued. Your violent nature, your inability to follow proper diplomatic channels, your tendency to solve problems with force rather than negotiation. These traits make you unsuitable for civilized society. Now, 3 days later, the evacuation was complete. Every human in Council space was aboard the massive fleet of ships heading toward the galactic rim, toward empty space where no civilized species dared to venture. They had been given basic supplies, outdated star charts, and a warning never to return. Captain Marcus Rodriguez joined Sarah at the observation window. His weathered face showed the strain of the past few days. As the fleet commander, he had been responsible for organizing the largest evacuation in human history. 12 billion people, he said quietly. 12 billion humans scattered across 57 ships, heading into the unknown. Sarah nodded, still watching Earth disappear. What are we going to do, Marcus? We don't have enough supplies to sustain this many people indefinitely. The ships weren't designed for permanent habitation. We survive, Marcus said grimly. We find a way. It's what humans do. Behind them, the evacuation continued in earnest efficiency. Families were being processed into long-term accommodation pods. Children were being enrolled in makeshift schools. Scientists and engineers were already forming committees to address resource allocation and life support systems. Dr. James Walsh, the fleet's chief scientist, approached them with a tablet in his hands. His usually cheerful demeanor had been replaced by focused determination. Sarah, Marcus, I've been running the numbers, he said without preamble. We have enough food for 18 months if we implement strict rationing. Water recycling systems are operating at maximum efficiency, so we should be okay there. The real problem is going to be manufacturing and raw materials. What do you recommend? Marcus asked. We need to find somewhere to settle, and fast. Not just a planet, but a system rich in resources. Mining operations, industrial facilities, the works. We need to become completely self-sufficient. Sarah pulled up the star charts on her tablet. The region they were heading toward was largely unexplored. The Council considered it too dangerous, too far from civilization to bother with. Perfect for exiles. There, she pointed to a system about 3 light-years away. XJ447. The automated surveys show multiple rocky planets, asteroid belts rich in metals, and no signs of intelligent life. Marcus nodded. How long to get there? 2 months at maximum speed, James replied. But, we'll be pushing the engines hard. Some of the older ships might not make it. Then, we better start planning for that too, Marcus said. He activated his communicator. All ship captains, this is Rodriguez. We're setting course for System XJ447. Begin rationing protocols immediately and start identifying critical personnel for priority transfer if any ships fail en route. As the fleet changed course, Sarah found herself thinking about the other species in the Galactic Council. The Zentari with their rigid hierarchies and obsession with protocol. The Flovan, who avoided conflict so completely that they had never developed weapons beyond simple stunning devices. The Kresh, who communicated through chemical signals and considered raised voices to be acts of violence. Maybe the Council was right. Maybe humans were too different, too aggressive for their civilized society. But, as Sarah watched the organized efficiency of the evacuation, the way people were already coming together to solve impossible problems, she felt a surge of pride. The Galactic Council thought they were getting rid of a problem. They had no idea what they had just unleashed. 2 weeks into the journey, the first crisis hit. The cargo ship New Mumbai suffered a critical failure in its water recycling system. Within hours, Captain Rodriguez had organized a rescue operation that transferred the ship's 3,000 passengers to other vessels in the fleet. But, it was how they did it that impressed Sarah. No panic, no political maneuvering about who would take how many refugees. Ship captains simply opened their doors. Families made room in already cramped quarters. Engineers worked around the clock to modify life support systems. You know what the Council never understood about us? Sarah said to Marcus as they watched the rescue operation from the bridge of the flagship Terra Nova. What's that? They saw our aggression, our willingness to fight, and they thought that was all we were. They never saw that we fight because we protect each other. That aggression comes from love, not hatred. Marcus smiled, the first genuine smile Sarah had seen from him since the evacuation began. They're going to learn the difference. The fleet pushed deeper into unexplored space, leaving the civilized galaxy far behind. Unknown to the refugees aboard those ships, their exile would become the foundation of something far greater than anything the Galactic Council could imagine. As Earth's sun finally vanished completely from view, Sarah made a promise to herself and to the 12 billion humans now depending on each other for survival. They would not just survive this exile. They would thrive. And, someday, when the galaxy needed them most, they would be ready. The age of human expansion had begun. 50 years had passed since the exile, and the system once known as XJ447 was now called Sanctuary. What had been empty space was now home to the largest human civilization in history. Admiral Lisa Park stood on the command deck of the orbital city New Geneva, looking down at the planet they had renamed Haven. The brown and gray world they had first discovered had been transformed into something beautiful. Atmospheric processors had given it breathable air and weather patterns. Vast cities stretched across continents that had once been barren rock. Green parks and blue lakes dotted the landscape where there had been nothing but dust and stone. "Admiral, the morning briefing is ready," announced Lieutenant Torres, her aide. Lisa nodded and made her way to the Situation Room. At 50 years old, she had been born during the journey to Sanctuary. She had never seen Earth except in historical records, but she carried herself with the confidence of someone who had helped build an empire from nothing. The briefing room was filled with the key leaders of human space. General Kim Washington, head of the Colonial Defense Force. Dr. Elena Vasquez, chief scientist for the Sanctuary Research Institute. Captain David Okafor, commander of the Deep Space Exploration Fleet. And dozens of others who had spent their lives turning exile into opportunity. "Let's start with the expansion report," Lisa said, taking her seat. Dr. Vasquez activated the holographic display in the center of the table. It showed a three-dimensional map of local space, with hundreds of glowing dots representing human settlements. "We now have permanent colonies in 47 star systems," she began. "Total human population has reached 38 billion. Industrial output is 12 times what it was when we left Council space. Most importantly, we've achieved complete technological independence. General Washington leaned forward. That's the key point. We don't need them for anything anymore. Our weapons technology has advanced far beyond what the Council uses. Our ships are faster, more efficient, and better defended. Captain Okafor pointed to the edge of the map, where new dots were appearing. The exploration fleets have identified another 60 systems suitable for colonization. We could double our territory within the next decade. Lisa studied the display. It was remarkable what they had accomplished. The humans who had been cast out as too aggressive had become the fastest growing civilization in the galaxy. They had taken the harsh lessons of exile and used them to become stronger than ever before. What's our contact status with the Council? Lisa asked. 0, replied Commander Sarah Martinez, head of intelligence. Complete radio silence for 50 years. As far as we can tell, they consider us extinct or irrelevant. That's about to change, Dr. Vasquez said, activating another display. This one showed energy readings and radio transmissions from Council space. Our long-range monitoring stations have been picking up some very disturbing signals. The room fell silent as the data appeared. Emergency broadcasts in multiple Council languages. Massive energy signatures consistent with large-scale warfare. Distress calls from planets across the galactic core. What are we looking at? Lisa asked. War, General Washington said grimly. And, not just any war. This looks like a full-scale invasion. Dr. Vasquez highlighted specific data points. The energy signatures match nothing in our databases of known Council technology. Whatever's attacking them, it's not any species we've encountered before. The Devourers, whispered Captain Okafor. Everyone turned to look at him. The Devourers were legend, a mythical species that supposedly consumed entire star systems. Most civilized species considered them a fairy tale used to scare children. The deep exploration fleets have been finding evidence, Okafor continued. Dead systems on the far side of the galactic rim. Planets stripped of all resources, stars destabilized and burning out. We thought it was natural phenomena, but the pattern is too consistent. Lisa felt a chill run down her spine. How many systems? Hundreds. Maybe thousands. And they're moving in this direction, toward the galactic core. General Washington was already pulling up tactical displays. If the Devourers are real and they're invading Council space, then the Council is in serious trouble. Their military doctrine is based on negotiation and minimal force. They wouldn't know how to fight a real war. Should we care? Asked Commander Martinez bluntly. They exiled us. Let them deal with their own problems. The room erupted in argument. Some agreed with Martinez. The Council had made their choice when they banished humanity. Others argued that they had a moral obligation to help. Still others worried about what would happen if the Devourers conquered Council space and, then, turned their attention to human territory. Lisa raised her hand for silence. Dr. Vasquez, what's your assessment? If the Devourers defeat the Council, what are our chances? The scientist ran calculations on her tablet before answering. Based on the energy signatures and the rate of system consumption, the Devourers are at least 10 times more powerful than anything the Council can field. If they defeat the Council's combined fleets, they'll have access to hundreds of star systems worth of resources. Against that kind of force. She paused. We'd last maybe 6 months. So we fight them there, or we fight them here, General Washington said. There's another option, Lisa said slowly. We could contact the Council. Offer our assistance. The room exploded again. Voices raised in anger, disbelief, and argument. Commander Martinez was loudest of all. They expelled us. They called us too violent, too dangerous for civilized society. Now you want to rescue them? I want to survive, Lisa said firmly. And if that means swallowing our pride and working with people who treated us badly, then that's what we do. Captain Okafor nodded thoughtfully. It would be poetic justice, wouldn't it? The species they exiled for being too aggressive turns out to be their only hope against a real threat. Dr. Vasquez was studying her tablet again. There's something else. The council broadcasts aren't just distress calls. They're also trying to contact someone. The messages are encoded, but I think they're looking for military assistance from any source. They're desperate. Desperate enough to accept help from exiled humans, asked General Washington. We won't know until we try, Lisa replied. She stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the bustling civilization they had built. Space stations, mining platforms, and massive shipyards stretched as far as the eye could see. In the distance, she could see the construction frames for the new Sovereign-class battleships, vessels designed with 50 years of hard-won experience and advanced human engineering. Admiral, Lieutenant Torres said quietly, if we do this, if we reveal ourselves to the Council, there's no going back. They'll know we not only survived but thrived. Lisa nodded. She understood the implications. For 50 years, humans had been building in secret, growing stronger in exile. Revealing themselves now would change everything. General Washington, I want a full assessment of our military capabilities compared to Council standards. Dr. Vasquez, analyze everything we know about the Devourer threat. Captain Okafor, prepare a small fleet for reconnaissance toward Council space. She turned back to face the room. And, Commander Martinez, draft a message to the Galactic Council. Tell them that humanity is still here, that we've grown beyond anything they could imagine, and that we might be willing to help them. But, this time, we negotiate as equals. As the meeting broke up and the officers hurried to their tasks, Lisa remained at the window. In a few hours, they would send the first human communication to the Galactic Council in 50 years. The Council had exiled them as dangerous primitives. They were about to discover that those primitives had become the most powerful military force in the galaxy. The irony was almost funny. The Council had expelled humans for being too violent and aggressive. Now those same qualities might be the only thing standing between civilization and complete destruction. The message was sent 3 days later. It was simple, direct, and impossible to ignore. This is Admiral Lisa Park of the Human Colonial Federation. We know about the Devourer invasion. We can help. Are you interested in discussing terms? The reply came back within hours. Please respond immediately. We are desperate. We'll accept any assistance. The exiled children were about to return home. But, this time, they were coming back as saviors. The meeting took place in neutral space, halfway between human and Council territory. Admiral Lisa Park stood in the airlock of the flagship Terra's Vengeance, watching as the Galactic Council delegation's ship approached. It was smaller than expected, and she could see battle damage along its hull. 50 years ago, her people had been forced to leave in cargo ships and converted civilian vessels. Today, she commanded a fleet of 47 warships that represented the pinnacle of human engineering. The contrast was not lost on her. Admiral, the Council delegation is requesting permission to board, announced her communications officer. Granted. Full honors, but keep the security teams ready. Lisa made her way to the main conference room. She had chosen to hold the meeting aboard a human vessel to make a point. The Council would see exactly what their exiled primitives had accomplished. The delegation was led by Ambassador Kefvar, the same Zentari who had delivered the exile order 50 years earlier. He looked older, his chitin dulled with age, and his four eyes carried a weariness that spoke of desperate times. Behind him came representatives from a dozen council species, all looking exhausted and frightened. Kefvar stopped short when he saw Lisa, his eyes widening in obvious shock. The human ships had been impressive enough from the outside, but the interior was beyond anything he had expected. Advanced holographic displays, seamless metal surfaces that hummed with energy, and equipment that looked decades ahead of current Council technology. Admiral Park, Kefvar said, inclining his head in a gesture that was more respect than the casual acknowledgement he had shown humans 50 years earlier. Thank you for agreeing to meet with us. Ambassador Kefvar, Lisa replied coolly. I remember you. You were there when my people were exiled. Uncomfortable silence filled the room. The other council representatives shifted nervously, clearly aware of the irony of their situation. Yes, Kethvar admitted. I was. And, we may have made an error in judgment. An error in judgment, Lisa repeated. Is that what you call throwing 12 billion people out of their homes? Dr. Veltar, a Flovan scientist, stepped forward. Admiral, we understand your anger. But, please, the situation is desperate. The Devourers have already consumed 47 Council systems. Our combined fleets have been unable to stop them. Lisa activated the holographic display in the center of the table. It showed real-time intelligence data that the human deep space monitoring network had gathered. The Council representatives gasped as they saw the scope of the invasion. We know about your situation, Lisa said. The question is, what are you offering in return for our help? Offering? Kethvar seemed confused. We hoped you might assist out of shared galactic citizenship. General Kim Washington, who had been silent until now, laughed bitterly. Shared galactic citizenship? You expelled us from that citizenship, remember? Called us too violent, too dangerous for civilized society. We were wrong, said Council Prime Minister Jordan, an elderly creche whose chemical signals conveyed deep regret. We see that now. Your people have built something remarkable here. This technology, these ships, they're far advanced of anything we possess. That's not an accident, Lisa replied. When you cast us out, you forced us to become completely self-sufficient. We had to innovate or die. We chose innovation. She gestured to the display, which now showed technical specifications for human weaponry. These ships are armed with quantum torpedo systems capable of cracking moon-sized asteroids. Our shields can withstand direct hits from stellar-class energy weapons. Our fighters move at 0.7 light speed in normal space. The Council delegates stared at the numbers in amazement and horror. The human military was not just advanced, it was overwhelmingly powerful compared to anything the Council possessed. How is this possible? Dr. Veltar whispered. Necessity, General Washington answered. And, the thing you always feared about humans, our aggression. We turned it into something useful. Ambassador Kethvar was studying the tactical displays with growing excitement. With ships like these, we could stop the Devourers. We could save the Council worlds. Maybe, Lisa said. But, let's talk terms first. If we're going to risk human lives to save Council worlds, we want guarantees. What kind of guarantees? Prime Minister Jordan asked. Lisa stood and walked to the main display, calling up a legal document that had been prepared by human lawyers and diplomats. First, immediate and full recognition of the Human Colonial Federation as a sovereign power equal to the Council. Second, formal apology for the exile and acknowledgement that it was unjust. Third, mutual defense pact, if anyone attacks human territory, the Council comes to our aid. And, fourth, General Washington added with a smile, humans get permanent seats on the Council governing body. No more second-class status. The Council delegates exchanged glances. 50 years ago, they had thrown humans out for being too troublesome. Now those same humans were dictating terms for saving the galaxy. These terms are substantial, Kethvar said carefully. So is the threat you're facing, Lisa replied. She activated another display showing the latest intelligence reports. The Devourers have just broken through your defensive line at the Kepler Nebula. At their current rate of advance, they'll reach the Council homeworlds within 6 months. We need time to consider, began Dr. Veltar. No time, interrupted Captain Sarah Drake, Lisa's intelligence chief. Our scouts report massive Devourer fleets massing for a final assault on the core systems. If we're going to act, it has to be now. Prime Minister Jordan's chemical signals shifted to urgent decision-making mode. The Council accepts your terms. All of them. We just need your help. Excellent, Lisa said. General Washington will coordinate with your military leaders. We'll need complete intelligence on Devourer capabilities and current positions. As the formal agreements were being drafted, Kethvar approached Lisa privately. Admiral, I must ask, why are you helping us? After what we did to your people, you would be justified in leaving us to face this alone. Lisa considered the question seriously. Because that's not who we are, Ambassador. Yes, we're aggressive. Yes, we solve problems with force when necessary. But we also protect those who can't protect themselves. That includes former enemies. Even ones who wronged you? Especially ones who wronged us, Lisa smiled grimly. It proves we're better than our worst impulses. Besides, the Devourers won't stop with Council space. Eventually, they'd come for us too. Better to stop them now, with allies, than face them alone later. The agreement was signed within hours. For the first time in 50 years, humans and the Galactic Council were working together. But, this time, the humans were the senior partners. As the Council delegation prepared to leave, Kethvar turned back to Lisa. Admiral, I want you to know, seeing what your people have accomplished, I'm ashamed of what we did. You were never the problem. We were simply too afraid of what we didn't understand. Understanding is earned, Lisa replied. Maybe after we've saved your civilizations, you'll understand us better. The human fleet began moving toward Council space within days. 47 warships carrying the most advanced technology in the galaxy, manned by people who had spent 50 years learning to survive against impossible odds. The exiles were coming home. And, this time, they were coming as conquerors of the unconquerable, ready to face an enemy that had never known defeat. The Devourers were about to learn why the Galactic Council had feared human aggression. They were also about to learn why that fear had been the Council's greatest mistake. The Battle of the Veil Nebula would be remembered as the day everything changed. Admiral Lisa Park stood on the bridge of Terra's Vengeance, watching as the largest fleet in galactic history prepared for what might be civilization's final battle. The Devourers had massed their forces, millions of biomechanical ships that looked like twisted metal and flesh fused together. They moved through space like a plague, consuming everything in their path. No communication, no negotiation, no mercy. Just endless hunger. Admiral, all human squadrons report ready, announced Captain Drake. Council forces are in position as well. Lisa nodded, studying the tactical display. The combined fleet was impressive, 47 human warships supported by over 300 Council vessels from dozens of different species. But, the Devourers outnumbered them 10-1. General Washington, status report. All systems nominal. Quantum torpedo tubes loaded and ready. Point defense systems online. Fighter squadrons standing by. Washington paused. Admiral, I have to say it, this is insane. We're outnumbered, outgunned, and fighting an enemy we barely understand. But we're not outthought, Lisa replied. And we're definitely not outfought. Remember, these are the same species that called us too violent for civilized society. Today, they're going to see what real violence looks like when it's focused on the right target. The communication channel crackled to life. Human fleet, this is Admiral Torkan of the Council Defense Force. We're reading massive Devourer movement toward our position. Energy signatures are off the charts. Copy that, Admiral. All ships, this is Park. Today we show the galaxy that exile made us stronger, not weaker. We fight not just for our survival, but for the right to exist as equals. No quarter asked, none given. The first wave of Devourers emerged from hyperspace like a nightmare made real. Their ships pulsed with organic energy, weapons that seemed to tear reality itself. The Council forces opened fire first, their bright energy beams lancing out across space. The Devourer's shields absorbed the attacks effortlessly. Human fleet, weapons free, Lisa commanded. The human quantum torpedoes launched in perfect coordination. Unlike the Council's energy weapons, these tore through Devourer shields like paper. Explosions bloomed across the enemy formation as dozens of bioships disintegrated. Direct hits across the board, reported the weapons officer. Enemy shields are ineffective against quantum weaponry. But the Devourers adapted quickly. The second wave of their ships began emitting a different kind of energy field, one that deflected the quantum torpedoes. Lisa watched grimly as their advantage began to disappear. "They're learning our weapons," Washington observed. "Adapting to counter them." "Then, we adapt faster," Lisa replied. "All squadrons, switch to kinetic bombardment. If energy weapons won't work, we'll use good old-fashioned mass and velocity." The human ships began launching clouds of hypervelocity projectiles, simple chunks of metal accelerated to incredible speeds. The Devourers, having adapted to sophisticated energy weapons, were caught off guard by the primitive but effective kinetic strikes. More explosions rippled through their ranks. "Admiral Park, this is incredible," came Admiral Torcan's voice over the communication system. "Your weapons are actually hurting them." But Lisa could see the larger picture on her tactical display. Despite their initial success, the human fleet was being surrounded. For every Devourer ship they destroyed, 2 more seemed to take its place. "Admiral," Captain Drake said quietly, "we're running out of ammunition. And they're bringing up more ships from hyperspace." Lisa studied the display, her mind racing through possibilities. They had hurt the Devourers, proved they could be beaten, but it wasn't enough. The enemy's numbers were simply too great. Then, she saw it. A pattern in the Devourer fleet movements. They weren't just randomly attacking, they were being coordinated by something larger. There, she pointed to a massive ship at the center of the enemy formation. "That's not just another Devourer vessel. Look at the communication patterns, the way the other ships orient toward it." "A command ship?" Washington asked. "More than that. I think it's their queen, their central consciousness. Take that out, and the whole swarm loses coordination. It's protected by thousands of other ships," Drake pointed out. "We'd never get through." Lisa smiled, the same fierce smile that had sustained humanity through 50 years of exile. "We don't go through them. We go past them." She activated the fleet communication system. "All human vessels, this is Admiral Park. We're going to perform a hyperspace microjump directly into the heart of their formation. Target the command vessel. This is a suicide run, people. Anyone who wants to transfer to Council ships has 30 seconds. No one transferred." The human fleet vanished into hyperspace for exactly 2.7 seconds, long enough to bypass the outer Devourer defenses, short enough to reappear right next to their target. Terra's Vengeance and her sister ships materialized in a perfect attack formation around the massive Devourer command ship. At point-blank range, they unleashed everything they had. Quantum torpedoes, kinetic projectiles, and high-energy particle beams all struck the command ship simultaneously. But this wasn't just about weapons, it was about human psychology. As the command ship's shields began to fail, Lisa gave one final order. "All ships, ramming speed." The human vessels, already badly damaged from the battle, accelerated directly toward the command ship. One by one, they struck the massive biomechanical construct. The explosions were visible from across the solar system. Terra's Vengeance was the last to strike. As her ship tore through the command ship's hull, Lisa felt a strange sense of completion. Her people had been exiled for being too aggressive, too willing to use violence. Today, that violence had saved the galaxy. The effect was immediate and dramatic. As the command ship died, the Devourer fleet began to lose coordination. Ships that had moved with perfect precision suddenly began attacking each other. Others simply stopped moving altogether. The Council fleet, no longer facing organized resistance, began systematically destroying the confused Devourer vessels. Within hours, it was over. The invasion that had threatened to consume the galaxy had been stopped by the exiled children of Earth. But the cost had been enormous. Of the 47 human ships that had entered the battle, only 12 survived. The rest had given their lives in the final assault. 3 weeks later, Lisa stood in the rebuilt council chambers on the capital world of Zentros. Her uniform was crisp, her bearing proud, but her eyes carried the weight of the friends she had lost. The Galactic Council recognizes Admiral Lisa Park and the Human Colonial Federation, announced the speaker, a dignified Flovan whose voice carried across the Great Hall. By unanimous vote, humanity is granted full membership in the Council, with permanent representation on the governing body. The applause was thunderous. Representatives from hundreds of species stood and cheered for the humans who would save them all. When the ceremony was over, Ambassador Kethvar approached Lisa. He looked ashamed but hopeful. "Admiral, on behalf of the Council, I want to formally apologize for the exile. It was based on fear and misunderstanding. We see now that what we called aggression was actually protective instinct. What we called violence was actually courage." Lisa nodded graciously. "Apology accepted, Ambassador. But I want you to remember something. When you exiled us, you thought you were getting rid of a problem. Instead, you created the solution to a problem you didn't even know was coming. The irony is not lost on us," Kethvar admitted. "The very qualities we feared made you our saviors." "That's the lesson here," Lisa said. "Diversity makes us stronger. Different approaches, different perspectives, different ways of solving problems. If the Council had included human thinking from the beginning, you might have been better prepared for the Devourers. And we will be better prepared for whatever comes next," Kethvar promised. "With humanity as our partners, not our subjects." As Lisa left the Council chambers, she received a message from Captain Rodriguez, now Admiral Rodriguez, commanding the human colonies back in sanctuary space. The message was simple but profound: "Welcome home, Admiral. The exile is officially over." Lisa smiled as she walked through the Council capital, past monuments to the battle and memorials to the fallen. Humans had been cast out of this galaxy for being too different, too aggressive, too willing to fight. 50 years later, they had returned as heroes. The exile had ended. The true age of human expansion was about to begin. And, this time, they would not be expanding alone. They would be leading a united galaxy toward whatever challenges lay ahead. The children of Earth had come home at last.